Hello, friends. On this glorious day in drink history, I have returned from my first official educational drinking show road trip, with stops in Los Angeles and Las Vegas, and those interviews will be released in the near future. Nobody died on this trip, but nobody was born either, so I'm considering it a break-even experience, and I couldn't be more thrilled to be back in the comfy confines of our studio here on Potrero Hill in San Francisco. And speaking of the Bay Area, I'm pleased to announce that I'll be the closing keynote speaker at the Craft Beverage Expo, taking place at the Oakland Convention Center May 18th to the 20th, and bringing together more than 1,500 craft beverage producers from a range of categories. It should be a rip-roaring good time, and I hope to see you there. Let's do this. This episode of the Educational Drinking Show is sponsored by Junipero Gin, which is the original American craft gin going back to 1996 and the pioneering work of Fritz Maytag, which also makes it the gin of San Francisco. At 98.6 proof, it's a bit stronger than most gins and perfect in your favorite gin cocktail. Good stuff. My guest today is Todd Rubin, and he is president of the Republic of Tea, which is based right here in the San Francisco Bay Area. I met Mr. Rubin when we recently had the good fortune of being recognized as part of the 2016 San Francisco Business Times 40 Under 40, and I was immediately drawn to his passion for tea, which is a beverage of some relevance to bartenders who do serve it from time to time, unless you are in London, where you serve it more. Or so I'm told, with crustless sandwiches and ascots and garden gnomes. Or perhaps not. But I shall believe. But getting back to my guest, Todd Rubin. Republic of Tea aspires to be the leading purveyor of premium teas, as it proudly sports in its motto. The company was founded in 1992, and Mr. Rubin represents the second generation of family leadership, taking over for his father, Ron Rubin, in the May of 2015. Yes, folks, today is all about tea, and I'm pleased to share with you my interview with Todd Rubin.
What inspires me about tea is it's such an ancient beverage, thousands of years old, but it's just so unique as a beverage that you can have different types of tea, different tea experiences, and what we've called it at the Republic of Tea is Tea Mind. And so we're going to explore today, when we taste and talk about tea, is all the different varieties that this one bush, the Camellia sinensis, the different ways that you harvest the tea, process the tea, as well as the growing conditions can affect the taste. So I think it's just an inspiring plant, and the ways that you can engage with it and experience it is just an inspiring thing.
What might the average consumer overlook in terms of the tea category?
I think what the consumer might overlook is the premium quality of tea, and that premium tea is the top two leaves in a bud. And so that's what you get all the great tastes from the tea. There's other leaves on the bush, and we don't use those at the Republic of Tea. We use the top two leaves in a bud. And so I'll be able to share those with you and show you some images of the top two leaves in a bud.
Well, you brought some props, and people were complaining that the set was a little bare. So you kind of beat me to it here, and we have all kinds of wonderful stuff. So this is a typical demo that you would do?
Yeah.
In terms of like an educational thing?
Yeah, so this is kind of our version of Tea 101. So to start learning all about the aspects of tea, about the health benefits of tea, the proper steeping time, the different types of tea, and also caffeine, because tea has caffeine with it. And so this is kind of a typical setup of doing a tea educational class.
So take us through it. What do you got going on here?
So with tea, as I mentioned earlier, Camellia sinensis is a plant. And so it's a bush. It's an ancient bush. And premium tea, which we procure, comes from 5 growing regions around the world. The specialty teas that we procure are from China, Sri Lanka, which is also known as Ceylon, India, Japan, and then Taiwan. So we're going to be tasting teas from those parts of the world. And so what we like to start off with is, as I mentioned, the Camellia sinensis. It's grown in this area between the Tropic of Capricorn and the Tropic of Cancer. And so tea is really similar to wine. And so we'll go through that process, too, of how there's that similarities. And so the first tea that we're going to try is our white tea. Have you ever had white tea before?
I have. It's delicious.
Yeah. So white tea is actually, it's the bud before it opens up into the two leaves in a bud. And so white tea is the most minimally processed of any type of tea. And so I'm going to show you the tea leaves while I put it in the cup, and maybe you can tell me some of the characteristics you see of the white tea.
In terms of characteristics, what are you looking for?
So if you look at the one characteristic with white tea that I like to talk about is the if you feel it, the texture. What do you feel?
Light, kind of crispy and dry.
Yes, and it also has a little fuzz to it, and so that is because the white tea is the most minimally processed of any tea. So it's the bud, and it's picked one time a year, usually in early April. And this is from the Fujian region in China, this white tea. And it's the rarest of teas. And so it's minimally processed. So once it's been plucked from the tea bush, there's really not much processing. Let it dry. And so that's why you get this nature of kind of the fuzziness of the bud. It's the young bud. And also with the white tea, pretty much once it's been dried, it's been packaged. And so it hasn't gone through any oxidation, which we'll talk about, which happens in green tea and black tea. And so with white tea, because it is the young bud, when you prepare white tea, it's really important about the steeping time. And so we'll talk about steeping time with tea. And so with white tea, I recommend 30 to 60 seconds. And so some people who might have had white tea before think, oh, I don't like it because it's a little bitter. And a reason it might be bitter is because you've oversteeped it. And so I put the little setup I have here is kind of the traditional way of steeping tea and tasting tea in these cupping sets. So we have the bowl here and the little piece here where I put in the white tea. So you can see that there, and added the hot water. And so steeped it, and then hopefully not make a mess, and turn it here and have the tea pour out. Now the interesting thing about white tea is you'll see it once we look at it, it's very light in color. And so some people, when they have white tea, they're like, oh, it just looks like water. But you'll be able to taste the characteristics of the white tea. So
now when you say this tea is rare, does supply ever become a problem for you guys?
Supply can be a problem. We procure enough to last us through the entire year. Sometimes we have some, if there's been a run on white tea, we might have an out of stock, but not typically. We get the new harvest every year. And so what I'm going to show you here is the actual steeped tea leaf. What I like to show here is, since it's the bud, as I mentioned, the premium tea is the top two leaves in the bud. And so this broke apart here. So if I can open this up, what you can see here is, because once you pick the top two leaves in a bud, a new shoot grows up on the tea bush. So I like to show this. This is the two leaves in a bud.
Wow. I don't think that's working very well, but I can check it out. So these are the top two leaves here.
Yep, and the bud.
And this is what you guys are going for.
Yes.
Is that a quality standard that's kind of a best practice or typical for the industry, or?
For the specialty tea industry, yes. So I just poured you a cup of the Silver Rain. So that's right there. So as you can see in the color, it's very light in nature.
Yeah.
Light in body.
Really light nose.
It's a nice sweetness to it too.
Mm-hmm. Almost a little acidity, a little brightness.
Mm-hmm. And the Republic of Tea, we source 100% white tea, so it's just the white tea buds.
Okay.
This is what we're tasting all today is our full leaf loose teas.
Mm-hmm.
We also have tea bag varieties
Mm-hmm.
of all of our teas, and the tea bag varieties make it an easy way to have tea on the go.
Mm-hmm.
But full leaf loose tea is a great opportunity of like experiencing tea because you can watch the leaves unfurl. And also with full leaf loose tea, all the essential oils you get when you steep a cup of full leaf loose tea, as well as the full leaf loose tea, you can steep multiple infusions. Where a tea bag, you pretty much only want to steep 1 cup of tea per tea bag.
Mm-hmm. So for the hardcores, it's loose leaf only.
Correct. So, as I mentioned, there's the bush, the Camellia sinensis,
Yep.
and there's 4 types of tea. We've had white tea. The next tea is green tea.
Mm-hmm.
After that is our oolong tea,
Okay.
and then black tea. And so we're going to start next with green tea.
Okay.
So this tea I really love. This is a dragon well. And so I'm going to add some hot water here.
Who gets to name them? Dragonwell. It's a sweet name.
Dragon well, it's actually a type of tea. This is from the Hangzhou province in China. And so it's a traditional name of this type of tea. And the reason why it's called this is if you see on the leaves, tell me a characteristic you see by these leaves. So in the white tea, it was a lot lighter.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can probably obviously tell with this type of tea, it's greener.
It's greener. It doesn't have the fuzz.
Correct. One thing about this tea, if you notice, if you pick up, the tea leaf, it's very flat.
Yeah, very flat and thin.
Flat and thin, and that is the process that the dragon well goes through, is it's actually pan-fried. So the
Really?
tea leaves are actually put in a wok, and then you press your palms up against, you press between the tea leaves and the side of the wok to flatten out the tea leaves.
That sounds tedious.
Yes, and it can be hot. I haven't experienced it, but I've had colleagues who've experienced the firing of the pan frying of the dragonwell tea, and that's why it gets its name, because it's a pan fried green tea.
Everything's better pan fried.
Yes.
Everything. What does that do? Why do they do it that way?
So so with tea, we're starting this process of oxidation. So in wine, we talk about fermentation,
Mm-hmm.
and so that it's the same thing, fermentation, oxidation, but we like to use the term oxidation with tea. And so what you want to do with the oxidation of the tea is you let the tea wither. So once it's been plucked, it's wither, so it interacts with the air. And then you want to stop that oxidation from happening, so you apply heat. And so there's different ways of applying heat. You could steam it. So you
Mhm.
might have heard of a steamed green tea or a pan-fried green tea, which is this dragon well. So this is a process of heating the tea leaves to stop the oxidation. And for this type of tea, the dragon well, the heating method is pan frying.
Wow, and there's literally just dudes with woks pan frying tea.
Correct. Yeah.
That must be cool to watch.
Pretty incredible. So with white tea, we talked about 30 to 60 seconds for steeping.
Mm-hmm.
And so with green tea, we actually we recommend anywhere from 1 to 3 minutes.
Oh wow.
So we're going to do the dragon.
And what's the reason for the change there?
The reason for the change there is actually just the amount of time for the infusion before it becomes too bitter.
Okay.
Yeah. And then also you'll be able to tell the difference between, the cups, the color.
Mm-hmm.
We like to say like the liqueur of the tea.
The liqueur.
Yeah, the liquor of the tea. So as you could tell by this, you could see the color
Much darker.
much darker. So I'm going to pour this here.
You're so organized. There's machine guns going off across the street. It's so serene in here as we sip tea.
We're finding our tea mind here.
Exactly.
So tell me what you find about this tea.
A lot earthier, a lot more robust, a lot more intense.
And as I was starting out, when we started out, I think it's just kind of what's inspiring about tea is that the different regions can affect, or the terroir can affect the taste of the tea. So this is from Chinese green tea. There's Indian green teas. We're going to be trying some Indian black teas.
Yep.
And just the way that, just like with wine, it can affect the taste of the tea.
What are some of the classic descriptors that you look for in a tea like this?
It's a good question. I think more about the nose. With this one, like you said, has a earthy taste to it. I think there's a nice finish on this. There's a little bit of a sweetness on this finish.
And even stylistically, within one kind of tea, if you were to line up, say, 5 examples of this tea in a range of quality, what are the quality indicators of a great cup of tea?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think the quality is actually, let me take some of these tea leaves to show you. Oops.
It was bound to happen.
It was bound to happen.
We're making a mess.
We can see it more in the oolong when we try that a little later, but you can see by the color of these green tea leaves, how fresh and bright green they are. So you can tell the time they've been oxidized. Also, there's no you see just the leaf. There's no stems, and that can show quality as well.
Awesome.
Yeah. So shall we move on to the next?
Let's do it.
Okay, so the next is one of my favorites, and it's a milk oolong.
Whoa.
So oolong traditionally is from Taiwan, but this is actually a Chinese oolong. And the fun story with the oolong is that this milk oolong there's this kind of ancient story that the tea bush was aerated with milk, so that's why you get that kind of name, milk oolong, as well as the texture when you taste the tea. You'll be able to experience that kind of creaminess from this tea. And so what's traditional known about oolong is for the large leaf. So you saw what the dragonwell tea leaf looked like, but once this tea steeps up, you'll be able to see the difference of the size of the leaf, as well as with when you're processing tea, what you want to do is before you fire it to stop the oxidation when it's withering, you actually, some tea gardens use big, large bamboo mats, and basically they tumble the leaves. And so what you're doing is you're bruising the leaves, the edges of the leaves, so all the kind of the great taste from the tea gets concentrated in the center of the leaf. And so then when you steep it, all that comes out in the steeped tea. And so you'll be able to see in the oolong, you'll see the edges of the tea leaf are brown, where it's a lot more greener on the inside of the leaf. And that also is another quality to show great quality type of premium tea.
I had no idea tea was so visual.
It is a visual experience, yeah.
Yeah, you keep going back to it. That's kind of cool.
There's the one thing that's said with this milk oolong is when the tea leaf is the hot water is added to the tea. We call it the agony of the leaves because the leaves is unfurling.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And so this is actually a rolled oolong. And so you might have heard of a tea called a jasmine pearls. And they're basically look like little BBs, and they are hand-rolled tea leaves. And so after, like we talked about with the dragonwell, once it's been fired, it's let to dry. With the jasmine pearls, once it's been heated, then it's hand-rolled and then dried. And what happens is the tea leaf will unfurl when you add the hot water. And so I'll show you the before of the dried tea leaf, and then when you see it in this cup, it's pretty amazing because you see like this kind of how small these are.
Oh, wow.
And then I'll give you a little preview. See how the leaf opens up?
Oh, yeah. It almost looks like a caper to start, and then it's all
And you
leafy.
actually don't need a lot of tea. We recommend for, an 8-ounce cup of tea, a teaspoon of tea. And again, like I said, when you use full leaf tea, you can do multiple infusions.
Okay.
And so this milk oolong, you could steep it. You could enjoy a cup of it and then add some more hot water, and you could steep it almost 3 times.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I'm not spitting, by the way. This tasting I'm fully invested in.
So talking a little bit more, we've experienced white tea, we've experienced green, and now oolong. I mentioned steeping time is really important. So
Yep.
white tea, 30 to 60 seconds. Green tea, 1 to 3 minutes. Oolong is what they call semi-oxidized. So it's not fully oxidized. And oolong kind of is in the middle between black and green tea. And so oolong recommend anywhere from 3 to 4 minutes for steeping an oolong tea. And when we talk about tea, there's obviously caffeine as part of tea, but the caffeine that's in tea is a little different from the caffeine that you might find in coffee. So there's L-theanine, and what it does is it causes this calm state of alertness. So you don't get that instant buzz when you have a cup of tea, as you don't get the instant buzz like in a cup of coffee like you do in a cup of tea. The tea caffeine, like I mentioned, is kind of this calm state of alertness while you drink the tea. And so if we kind of look at this, creating this chart in our heads about, the proper steeping time, there's also the caffeine chart in your head. So black tea has more caffeine it has the most caffeine of any tea, but it's about half as much comparable to a cup of coffee. So then if you kind of go down the chart, green tea has about a quarter as much, about 25 milligrams. And then white tea has the least amount of caffeine.
Okay.
But then on the opposite side, if you look at health benefits, white tea has the most health benefits of tea because it's the least oxidized. So you get all the antioxidants that you find in tea from the white tea. You still get them in the green tea. You still have some in black tea, but the more you oxidize the tea, some of those benefits are lost. And so since white tea is the least oxidized and processed, it contains the most kind of antioxidants and polyphenols. So the next variety, the final variety of the tea from the Camellia sinensis is the black tea. And so we're going to be trying 2 types of black tea.
I feel like we've been building up to this.
We are building up to it.
Yeah.
We're trying 2 different types of black tea. And so as I mentioned, there's 4 types of tea: white, green, oolong, and black. But then there's kind of 3 subcategories within the tea. And there's just the straight plain tea, which we've had with this 100% white tea, the Silver Rain, the Dragon Well, the Milk Oolong. And as you mentioned, when you were tasting, the flavor notes in that oolong, nothing was added to that. That was just a straight oolong, but just because of the processing as well as the earth has provided those tasting notes that you experienced. But a second subcategory of tea is blended teas. And so one of our top-selling teas is our ginger peach, and that's what we're known. It's a ginger peach black tea. So it's a black tea base, but then it's been blended with pieces of ginger, pieces of peach. And so that's a category of blended teas. And then the third category is scented teas. And so I was mentioning earlier the jasmine pearls. There's actually no jasmine flower in those teas. It's actually been scented with jasmine flowers. And so tea is very susceptible to scents. So if, let's say, I don't know if you have tea at home and how you store it, but our packaging being a stainless steel and we have an airtight lid, it keeps the tea fresh, and there won't be any kind of scents that would, from your cupboard, that could get and affect the smell, the taste of the tea, because tea is very susceptible to that. So during the making of jasmine tea, the tea leaves that are withering are actually put in a room with jasmine blossoms that have just recently opened. And so the tea leaves are absorbing the scent of the jasmine. And so have you had jasmine tea before?
Mm-hmm.
So there's no jasmine flowers in that. It's just the scented. Have you ever had like a Earl Grey?
Yeah.
It has that bergamot oil. So that's, again, another scented tea. And so tea can become very complex because you have, just your 4 types of tea, and then you have scented teas, you have straight teas, and then you have blended teas. So definitely a passion of mine in learning about teas, talking about teas, and tasting teas. So the next 2 teas that we're going to try are black teas, and one is just a straight Golden Yunnan black tea, and then the other is a blended black tea, and it's a variety black tea called a pu'er. Have you ever had pu'er before?
I have not.
So pu'er has a very kind of smoky quality to it. You can find pu'er comes in tea cakes. So the Chinese have made tea, they've packed it together in kind of a round disc. And then the way that they make their pu'ers, they kind of break off a little piece of the tea cake, as we call it, and then put it into a cup and add the hot water. With this one, this is loose pu'er, and so I added a teaspoon, and then we steeped it. But you'll be able to taste kind of a smoky and earthiness to the pu'er. But again, it's a type of black tea. So I've with steeping time for black tea is a little longer than all the other teas that we've gone through, so we recommend anywhere from 4 to 5 minutes. So
Okay.
I've let both of these steep for 4 to 5 minutes, and we'll try these out. Some people like to add to their tea, milk, honey, sugar to their tea. I'm a purist, so I don't typically add to that. But what we recommend is if you have black teas are more fuller body teas. So if you have a fuller body tea, they take better to the addition of milk or any kind of sweetener. So as you probably know, like the British, they drink their kind of hearty breakfast teas, and those are great if you add a little milk and honey to them. So I'm going to show you, this is the Golden Yunnan. So, I mean, just before even tasting the tea, you can already see it visually, the color of the tea leaf, and, kind of laid all the tea leaves out here. So if we kind of compare it to like the green tea leaf, it's definitely a lot darker. And that's because it's been fully oxidized and let to wither overnight.
It's a lot more broken, too.
Yes. So the tea leaves actually being oxidized longer, they get, smaller during the heating process. And so the other tea, which I have here, this is the coconut pu'er. This tea was introduced a number of years ago, and that was when, coconut, just as a flavor, coconut waters were gaining a lot of traction. And so we just felt with, this black tea, the pu'er, it would be great balanced out with the flavor of coconut and the coconut pieces.
That smells awesome. Outside of spirits, I tend to have the palate of like a junior high girl. So
I'd recommend to try the Golden Yunnan first.
Oh, okay.
And then try the...
It's a lot stronger.
Much
a lot richer.
stronger, very rich. This is a great tea to start your day with. And as I mentioned earlier, it'd take well to adding, any kind of dairy or dairy alternative.
The tannin.
Much more tannic.
Yeah, a ton of tannin.
You thought this one had tannins. Just wait till you try the coconut pu'er.
Whoa. I'm going to finish all of them. That smells so good. Oh, wow. Very coconutty. Very coconutty. So there's still a lot of room for innovation in tea.
Yes, there is. And we continually innovate. We've been doing it for over 23 years. And it's a good segue because I have some new teas that I wanted to share with you.
I'm excited.
That we recently innovated with. And, there's tea, what we've talked about, the white, green, oolong, and black teas. But there's also herbs. And so herbs, you've probably heard of herbal tea, like a chamomile. People refer to them as teas because you prepare them the same way, where they've been steeped with hot water. There's a French term tisane, and so we like to call all of our herbal teas just herbal teas, but there's actually no tea leaf or Camellia sinensis in it. So you can make your own herbal tea at home if you have an herb garden. You know, you can take some fresh mint, add hot water, and then you have some mint tea. But what we've done is we have a whole collection of all different type of herbal teas. But there's some herbs that have great health benefits as well as functions to them. And so that's a key thing in the industry right now, is looking at the functional benefits, you know, from tea leaves giving you antioxidants, but also different herbs like, you know, ginger will help with, you know, soothing your stomach. Cinnamon helps with burning fat. And so what we've decided to do is be innovative by taking, you know, green tea, which is really health forward tea, and blending it with organic green tea and blending it with organic matcha. Are you familiar with matcha?
Yes.
Okay, so we're going to have a little matcha experiment at the end. But organic matcha is finely ground Japanese green tea. And so there's a lot of health benefits associated with matcha, which we'll talk about shortly. But we blended organic matcha, organic green tea with functional herbs. And so we introduced this tea, brand new, just about 3 weeks old, a line of super green teas. So I prepared for you a cup and your mug.
My mug. I've been waiting for the mug to enter.
Of our immunity super green tea. So this is for wellness, and this has matcha and green tea, as I mentioned. Also has echinacea and elderflower. So this is the perfect tea that you should drink when you do the show, because you'll remain healthy throughout the show. So this is our immunity super green tea for wellness. We also have a big trend right now is weight loss. And so we have our lean green tea, and this is a matcha and green tea with Garcinia cambogia, as well as cinnamon. So as I mentioned, cinnamon can help curb those sugar cravings you may have. And Garcinia cambogia helps with fat burning. And then this is one of my favorites, our Brain Boost. And Brain Boost is for cognitive health. And this has ginkgo biloba as well as blackcurrant. And then the final one is our Serenity. And this has lavender as well as holy basil paired with the matcha and green tea.
Matcha seems to be really on trend right now. You hear about it a lot in cooking. I mean, you hear bartenders talking about it. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, you know, I think the interesting thing about matcha is, as we tasted through the teas, when you tasted the Dragon Well, you mentioned the term earthy. And so matcha has a very earthy taste to it if you prepare it on its own. And so maybe we can talk a little bit about matcha now. And so, as I mentioned, matcha is Japanese ground tea. And so, as we talked about with the green tea, like the Dragon Well, you know, the tea has been pan fried and then dried, and then we steep the tea. But with matcha, you take it one step further, where you take these Japanese tea leaves and you put them in this kind of funnel, and they funnel down between these two stones that have different grooves on either side, and they slowly spin, and basically you're grinding the green tea leaves into this fine, bright green powder. And so when we drink all these teas, what we're actually doing is we're drinking the steeped beverage. Where when you drink matcha, you're actually ingesting the tea leaves, because when you add hot water to the matcha, you know, the powder dissolves, and then you're drinking the actual tea leaves. So you're ingesting the tea leaves. So the health benefits are going to your bloodstream faster. And so you get a lot more antioxidants. Matcha, since it's more concentrated, has more caffeine than a cup of green tea. So I think why it's on trend now is, one, because you can get a lot of health benefits from matcha. You can have a little more caffeine from it. But also, as you mentioned, it's used for culinary. So we positioned our matcha for drinking as well as for culinary uses. And so, you know, if you probably had green tea ice cream before. Well, easy way is you could buy a pint of vanilla ice cream and add a couple teaspoons of matcha, let it put it on the counter, let it soften a little bit, add a couple teaspoons of matcha to it, and then blend it together, and then you've made green tea ice cream at home. So there's opportunities to put the health benefits of matcha into any kind of food that you're eating. And since you're ingesting the tea leaves, it's helping you benefit a lot faster than just a cup of tea. And so the one thing with matcha, though, it has a very earthy taste to it.
Yeah.
Some people say like a seaweed taste. I'll make a small cup for us to try. And so that's one way why people are blending other things with matcha to kind of cut some of those taste profiles that you get from it. So if you hand me one of those bowls. So as I used a traditional teaspoon for portioning out the full leaf tea, but this is a traditional Japanese kind of spoon. And so you get, the matcha powder like this. And so you put it in the bowl.
And this is all done with stone still?
Yeah, stone ground, yep.
Wow.
So the one thing you'll notice with this is the color. And so traditionally the Japanese use a bamboo whisk to whisk up the matcha. I'm going to use our electric. I came prepared with our what. And what you want to do is you want to kind of get this nice little kind of foam on the top. So I'm whisking this guy up here, and then we'll give the matcha a taste.
Totally different. I'm ready.
And so what we've done with our super green teas by pairing the matcha with the green tea and the functional herbs, it balances out the tea blend. So you're not getting the taste, kind of the earthy taste that some people don't like with matcha, just drinking it straight.
Oh yeah, it's definitely, you get that kind of seaweed thing. It's not unpleasant though.
And so we've created a line of matcha teas. Actually, we're trying just the natural, but we have flavored matchas. We have a yuzu. We have a ginger. We have a chai. And we just introduced, have you ever heard of activated charcoal?
No.
So activated charcoal, you can use that to help detoxify your system. And so we actually blended activated charcoal from bamboo in with the matcha. And so it's a detox matcha.
Oh, wow.
So that's brand new.
Awesome. And what do you see in terms of opportunities for bartenders to work with tea more?
I think with the herbs are great. As I mentioned, how we blended these functional herbs with tea. I think also using, kind of from matcha, if it's more concentrated, and you can, add that to any kind of cocktails. Also, black tea, like the Earl Grey, would be great because of that bergamot oil, has that orange, nice orange taste to it. And, if you can just make a concentration of a tea, and that's, and then just add it as to any kind of cocktail or to beer. And I think we're going to experiment with that with the matcha.
Indeed.
So the one last thing I wanted to show you with innovation at the Republic of Tea, as I started talking about a little bit with herbs, is we took our expertise in fruits, pieces that we use for blending, and herbs that we use in blending some of our teas, and we partnered with a company called Whole Vine. And what they do is they actually take the dried fine wine grape skins and repurpose those. So if we think about the wine industry, when you're making the wine, there's the leftover pumice, stems, leaves, and what they're doing is repurposing that. And so they're taking the grape skins and they're drying them. And what we've done is we've blended these fine wine grape skins with our expertise of fruits and herbs, and we've created a line of teas called Sonoma teas. And so, as I mentioned earlier with with herbs. There's no tea leaves actually in these, but the base of them are fine wine grape skins.
Oh, wow.
So we have a collection of 3 iced teas, and we have Chardonnay grape, using the Chardonnay grape skins, Rosé, which is the Sauvignon Blanc and Pinot Noir grape skins, and then our Cabernet. And so what we've done with these is we've actually made them into iced tea pouches, and so you can make a whole quart of iced tea.
Nice.
And so I made an iced tea, the Chardonnay, that we can taste up.
Awesome. And how long should you steep these?
For the Chardonnay, for the Sonoma teas, we recommend 10 minutes.
Okay.
So you can get all the nuances from the grape skins come out. And so with the Chardonnay, we've paired it with pineapple and peaches. So we've used some of the tasting notes that you get with those wines when you try them on their own, and that's what we've done for that. So this is the Chardonnay.
It's delicious.
Yeah, they're really refreshing. They're great for the summer. We also have a holiday one, our Mulled Zin. So you might have had that German mulled wine before, and so this is a Mulled Zin. The great thing about all of these, they're caffeine-free, and they're also alcohol-free.
Very fruity. Very easy drinking.
And great, refreshing during the summer. If you have a party, and easy to make since they're pre-portioned in a pouch that makes a quart pitcher of iced tea. So the one tea you were mentioning, for you as you're trying and experiencing tea is high calf tea. And so, black tea has about half as much caffeine compared to a cup of coffee. But for those who enjoy drinking coffee and trying to cut back on that, but like that caffeine from coffee, what we've done with our high calf teas have been innovative by creating a great tasting black tea blend, but we've added green tea extract, which provides caffeine to the blend, additional caffeine to the blend. So our high calf teas actually have more caffeine than a cup of coffee and then a cup of black tea. And this would be fun for you, a little gift for you to experiment with trying as you experience your tea mind and your tea journey.
Thank you. This doesn't seem like it's a toy. This seems like it's pretty serious stuff.
So we have a little chart on the side to show you how many milligrams of caffeine are in each of the teas. And
so 1.4 times.
Yes, and so that's the toasted coconut, which is one of the top sellers. We also have a palm berry. We have a little saying on the side of the tin when you open up the top seal. Release the buzz.
You should not be giving this to me. This is not going to be good. This is going to get taken away. I can tell you right now.
And I think the final thing we wanted to do is experiment.
Yes.
With beer and with matcha, and so what we're going to try is creating a matcha beer. So
the tea's catching up with me.
So we're going to take a little matcha here. And I'm not going to fill the hot water, so I took about, a teaspoon of matcha. And I'm not going to hydrate it by adding some hot water, but I'm not going to fill it up because I still want that concentration. So I'm not going to fill up the whole bowl. So I recommend for this little experimentation about 2 tablespoons of hot water. So I'm going to add that.
So this would be a great way to pass off your beer as like a green smoothie. Is immediately where my head's going.
And a little caffeine too.
A little caffeine.
So I'm going to blend this together. And then we have
some Anchor Lager. My gut told me that the lager would be a good mix for this.
Oops, sorry. So we have the lager. What I'm going to do is take our little Trusky whisk and start slowly adding some of the matcha. So this would have been perfect for St. Patrick's Day, some green beer.
Or the new Ghostbusters movie. And it's green.
It's green.
Now, have you tried this before?
I haven't.
So we're breaking new ground here. We're pioneers.
It's a great partnership, the Republic of Tea and Anchor's team.
Not bad.
Not bad
You
at
get a
all.
little bit of that matcha.
Probably could add a little more.
Yeah. Definitely don't lose the beer.
It's a great color.
I'm just going to exit this room in a haze. A haze of caffeine and now beer. My body doesn't know what to think. So, what's going on in your world? Like, what's happening in the tea world right now? What are the big opportunities and challenges?
I think the opportunity, as we talked about earlier, people looking at health and wellness, and how to change kind of your lifestyle, and one of those is the type of food and beverages that you drink, and so getting off of the kind of that fast-paced coffee and transitioning to tea is just a great opportunity out there, because as you've tried through all these teas, I'm not sure if you've ever had a milk oolong before or a dragon well, but there's a lot of great tasting teas out there that can supplement just having that traditional cup of coffee that you start your day off. So there's a lot of ways to experiment with tea, so a lot of opportunities. And then I think I wouldn't say there's challenges in tea. I think it's the challenge might be finding the best cup of tea that you want to start your day with. And so, one of the teas that I start my day off is a Lucky Irish Breakfast. It's a black tea, and it has that kind of full body and heartiness to it. I think there's just more opportunities to innovate with tea, and we continue to do that with our Sonoma teas, the high calf teas, our super green teas. I think there's, lots of other ways to innovate, and we're continually doing that. And we have a lot of things that we're working on now that we're excited to bring to the market in the next few months and years.
And what's the seedy underbelly of tea culture like? Is there a tea culture? Are there hardcores out there? Are there events? Are there blogs? Are there magazines?
Yeah, so there's a lot of tea culture. There's actually a World Tea Expo that's held during the summer. Traditionally it's held in either Southern California or Vegas, and a lot of opportunities for tea people to get together and to taste new teas, as well as a lot of people are opening tea shops, and so a way for those people to learn about tea and find companies to source teas for their tea shops. There's definitely tea bloggers out there. Some of bloggers have written about the Republic of Tea and our teas, and there is a culture out there. We have we call our customers citizens, and so we have citizens that post their tea habits and their tea drinking experiences on Instagram and on Twitter, and it's just great to see people engaged and talking about tea, drinking tea, and that tea is becoming part of our culture.
And are there tea celebrities? Like when you go to the Tea Expo, is there that person that everyone's getting selfies with and getting autographs?
There's not tea celebrities. There's people who've been in the industry for a long time, but I don't think they're a top of mind people. But I think any kind of celebrity that's drinking tea or talking about tea, I think there's that power of influence.
And something I've heard about is sometimes people get into tea and it leads to traveling and bringing those two passions together.
Yeah, and as I mentioned, the 5 growing regions where we procure our tea, we at the Republic of Tea, we take our ministers, our employees, on trips to origin. So we call it trips to origin each year. And it's the opportunity to be able to experience a tea garden and taste the tea and see tea being made. And so I've had the great fortune of traveling to almost all 5 countries of origin. The one that I still need to travel to is Sri Lanka.
Mm-hmm.
But you can see the different processes. Last year we went to Japan to see matcha. The year previous to southern India to see traditional black tea made. But yeah, there's actually, not only do our company, we take our employees to origin, but there's I've read about articles about tea trips. You know, you can sign up through some travel agency, you know, a tea trip to experience tea.
And do any of your tea experiences kind of come to mind as standing out in terms of travel?
You know, I think part of experiencing tea is also experiencing the culture. And so, you know, being in southern India a few years ago, being able to, you know, drive on these curvy roads, which you think that you're going to fall off the edge, and just see these rows and rows of tea gardens is just an incredible experience. And also being in these small towns and it's in someone's backyard, they have tea bushes. And it's like, you know, in our backyards, we might have, you know, some, you know, Japanese maple trees or some bushes or evergreens. And it's like the way of life there is having, you know, tea bushes in your backyard. Might be similar to kind of up here in Northern California and, you know, Sonoma and Napa having, you know, vineyards. But I think though, just kind of seeing these rows upon rows and hills of tea is just an incredible experience. And also learning the culture and, you know, plucking the tea leaves. All the tea leaves that we've experienced are hand plucked.
Oh, wow.
The only region that plucks by machine typically is Japan. But being able to like pluck the tea leaves and be in the gardens with the women who've plucked tea for years is just a really incredible experience.
And you'd mentioned terroir, and after having a chance to visit these places, is there any tea terroir that really speaks with you after both seeing the place and drinking and tasting the tea?
Yeah, I think probably China.
Yeah? What about it?
I think just because there's China, it's hard to get to some of the growing regions. And so you have to, it's not like you can go outside of a major city and then you're there at a tea plantation or a tea farm. It's like you have to take a flight, you have to take a bus or a car and, you know, go a couple hours and you're at this tea garden. I think it's like that it's a unique place to get to, gives that kind of terroir taste to the tea. And contributes to the taste of the tea.
How does it change the flavor of the tea? How does that terroir really influence and make itself known in the tea experience?
You know, I think it's the age of the tea bush. There's some of the tea bushes are, you know, hundreds of years old.
Really?
Yes, and they can that can contribute to the taste.
Do they get better as they get older?
Some do, yeah. If they're maintained. And then also, I think, you know, again, also the processing helps contribute to it. You know, the way that the tea is handled, if it's, you know, the bruising, how long that takes place. You know, it's like, you know, in wine, there's the winemaker. So in tea, you know, there's the tea maker at the plantation or the farm, and having to affect the taste and quality of the tea.
And is that person really important to the process in terms, are they kind of the arbiter of the overall production process on that side?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. And are there any like hot spots where, you know, in wine you have vineyards and that spot is super special for growing grapes. Are there any just insanely just sought after kind of micro spots for growing tea?
Yeah, have you heard of Darjeeling
Yeah.
tea? Yeah, so that's in northern India. And so there's a small little area called Darjeeling. I haven't had the opportunity to travel there yet, but again, that's one of those places where you have to take a small plane to, and then you have to get in, you know, unpaved roads, you know, in a Jeep to, you know, go to that tea destination. And Darjeeling is, you know, has that quality about it. And one thing that we do at the Republic of Tea is, you know, when you tea, there's what they call the harvest season, usually is end of March, early April, and they call that the first flush. And so it's the first picking of the tea. And so what we do is we do a first flush Darjeeling. So it's kind of the top-notch first harvest of the year. And what we do is, because the tea is harvested and then it's processed, and then typically, since it's in India, you economically put it on a boat to come over to the U.S., but what we do is we air freight that tea in. So typically from the time it's been plucked to when it's available for sales, anywhere from 2 to 3 weeks. So you're having that fresh tea that's just been plucked available. And so that's our first flush Darjeeling. And so the tea harvest is just starting probably in about a week or 2 weeks. So we'll have first flush Darjeeling in a few weeks. So we're really looking forward to that.
Good timing. Thank you so much for stopping by and sharing so much of this with us and the stories, and I'm feeling it, man.
Thanks, Alan. Yeah, it's been fun to taste different teas and to experience and kind of experiment with beer as well, but it's my pleasure, and really had a lot of fun with you.
Until next time, very appreciated.
Thank you.